Testing, testing. Ooh, it works. Wow, look at this crowd, Cory.
This is great. Thanks, everybody.
So yes, it is true. I was here 3.5 years ago. That's how long it took me to convince Kenny to invite me back. Maybe I didn't do as good enough job, but we're here tonight. Guys, you're in for a massive treat, not because of me, but because Cory has come here from the Valley to share some really neat insights. I've got some insights I'm going to share as well. But this whole idea of us going longer than usual is not exactly how we wanted to kick it off, because we're going to try to drop a lot of value here tonight, but there's a lot of pressure under us. I kind of told Cory that there's a renaissance going on in Toronto specifically when it comes to sales. Do you guys think that's true?
Is it? All right, I feel it.
Guys, I told Cory there's a sales renaissance going on in Toronto. Do you think that's true?
Okay, you were right.
I told you.
You're 1 for 4 today.
I'm 1 for 40. All right, so we're gonna have some fun today. This is not, I'll tell you what this is not gonna be. We're not gonna sit up here and preach a lot of things today. This is gonna be interactive, and I told Cory that he is gonna be amazed by how outspoken and how interactive the Toronto crowd is going to be. Are you guys with me on this tonight or what? Yeah? All right, there's like 8 of you that are. Are you guys with me on this tonight? See, Cory, we have like a hearing problem. Like the first time we don't get it, but the second time we're massive. It happens to me all the time.
By the third breakout, are we doing breakouts tonight?
Oh yeah, it's like.
Oh yeah, we're doing breakouts.
Everyone's gonna have those
we're
playbooks.
Talk at you.
You're gonna have those playbooks filled out by the end of tonight. So here's what we're gonna do. The agenda, because we have one for real. This is the topic for tonight: how to make the next 90 days like your first 90 days. And the idea here is everyone's had their honeymoon stage in a new sales job. How many people right now are in the first 90 days of a job right now? Okay, so a few. So you're pretty excited, right? For the most part, everyone's excited. Everyone's keen in their first 90 days. What if you could package that keenness every quarter of the year? Yeah, people are nodding. Like people are like, that would be pretty good. Yes. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, but we're also going to get into some trends that's going on. We've put together some data on salary information, specifically in sales in Canada. So we're going to be sharing a lot of benchmarks, which is really relevant to everyone in the room here today. We're going to be getting into a whole slew of other metrics with regards to actual stats in technology. How many people are in tech sales here? Show of hands. Yeah, we figured as much. So we're going to dive a little deeper in the tech side of things. Cory's going to walk through, his newest book is coming out next week. So he's going to share some insights on what's happening in his book. There's going to be a lot of questions you can ask. We'll have an Ask Me Anything part of it. Oh, it's I can't wave at a picture. It's not the video.
You were telling her to stop.
No. Keep going. It's my good side. And then we're also going to get into some specific tactics. If you saw Cory's session here last time he was visiting, you'll know he's known for analogies, so he's going to get into a real interesting analogy.
Yeah, we're using analogies tonight, so think of what the analogy might be. I just wanted people to think of it, see if somebody can get it right.
It's very meta. This is going to be very meta.
It's going to be tough, but it'll be good.
Okay, so let's dive into this. Let's get started with really you folks. How many people, use your hands, how many are in sales right now? That should be pretty much the majority of the room, it looks like. Fantastic. All right, let's get a sense for how long you've been in sales. If you've been in sales for at least 1 year, hands up. If you've been 2 years, hands up. 3 years, hands up. 4 years, hands up. 5 years, hands up. 6 years, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's it. I'm going to stop at 10. So 10 plus, hands up. The veterans, this is amazing because we got people from all over the place. We have a question for everybody because we've got people from all over the place. Look at the person to your left. Get into a pair real quick. Don't get up or go anywhere. The person beside you. We have a question we're asking, and we are going to be getting some feedback from you. Everyone got someone to talk to? Pair up. You got 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Everyone's got a pair? If you don't have a pair, put your hand up. Salespeople, pair up. That's it, night over. Game over. All right, you've all got pairs, fantastic. If you can hear me, clap twice. If you can hear me, clap twice again. All right, awesome. All right, so you've got your pairs. I said get into pairs, not like get to know each other and share your whole background. You're in a room of salespeople, get into pairs, 5 seconds. So, what'd you do this weekend? And where are you from? And, all right, but you can do that. You're gonna introduce yourself in a second, and you have got 1 minute. 1 minute, that's 30 seconds each. 30 seconds each, people, 30 seconds to answer this very simple question. Why did you get into sales? 1 minute, introduce yourselves and answer. Go ahead. All right, awesome. We got Cory in the back. Cory, why don't you find someone to tell us why they got into sales?
Nicole, why'd you get into sales?
My professor told me it was a good idea.
It's a reasonable reason.
To make money.
Make money?
A lot of money?
Tons.
To get into technology.
To get more money.
More money.
For the challenge.
And in the front.
Money. To help people.
What?
To help people.
To help people.
I'm actually not in sales.
Not in sales. All right, pass. He's got the I'm not in sales pass card.
Money.
Money. Anyone have a non-money answer? But yes, over on the side. Cory's right there with the mic.
I love people. I find them fascinating, and I can close my mouth.
We got another one here.
I was a mom for 20 years, the ultimate sales job, so why not do tech sales?
Whew, preach, preach. The hardest job. This is easy for you. Yes, we got another one. Oh, you're back there. All right, cool.
To be honest with you, it's the only career that you can control your own income. And I know it has to do with money, but if you really think about it, that's the only actual career that you can jump in and make as much money as you want, right? So I got into it so no one can control what I do.
How about the guy looking for a job?
Talk about it. I'm very passionate about psychology and also have a startup background, so mixing the two together turns into sales and works really well.
I love that answer.
Another one here.
I was the only software developer that could speak to people.
Who's hiring?
To control my life. So if you sell, you can manage how much you want to make. Especially if you have your own company.
All right, cool.
Yeah, obviously to make money, but also it's like the only job that you can hold yourself really accountable for all the moves you make. So I just love that.
Amazing. There's only one scorecard for sales, right? Awesome. All right, well, round of applause for all the people that showed Cory that we are not shy. All right, so this is awesome, and I love the reasons. Cory, you've done some selling. Why do you think sales is the best profession right now, or a great place to be?
Oh, I thought you were going to ask me the same question you ask everybody else.
Okay, so same question.
No, the same question is because one of my mentors told me, I started a company, I was an operations and finance background, and he said, if you don't get good at sales, any business that you lead is going to fail. And I said, okay, well, I believe you, and now I really believe him. So no, I think everybody's answer was great, and controlling your own destiny is absolutely one of the best parts of it.
Right on. All right, let's get into some stats. We got some Canadians here. This is, how many have heard of the Sales Talent Agency? It's a recruiting house. They publish a report. The data I'm going to show you is not mine. It's theirs. Full credit to them. I'm just kind of taking some of the more interesting pieces of it to share with you tonight. And then there's another section I will get into that's data actually specific to the US, so you can see some differences between Canada and the US with regards to sales. Selling in Canada, and this kind of supports what everyone just said, despite having lower base salaries than many other departments, the highest paid non-executive employees are almost always in sales, which probably supports pretty much the reason everyone here, for the most part, said they got into it. So far, this study sounds good to me. This was interesting as well. Average base salary by years of experience. You don't have to take pictures. I'm happy to share it with you. Just sit back, enjoy, relax, listen. You don't have to take notes. I think there's video. So again, it's sort of Captain Obvious here. The more experience you have, the higher your base salary will be. Pretty simple. Goes all the way up to 16 years. Average on-target earnings. Average OTE. This is, by the way, across Canada, all industries. Okay, so there's obviously going to be skews. We'll get into some industry specific afterwards. But again, entry level, anywhere from a 38,000 base salary, 50 OTE, and then you'll see 74 and 122 OTE. This is average across all industries. Actual earnings, super interesting. So I'll quick back. OTE, look at the far right, because I know that's where everyone's really looking anyways. 122 OTE, 115 is average actual earnings. So a lot of people don't actually hit their OTE number, and if you can get into the business of that, most companies that set OTEs actually know that. Mark Benioff at Salesforce, most of the actual OTEs are $1 million, and in his mind he's thinking, as long as I'm averaging 600,000, we're hitting our numbers. That's how a lot of businesses think about these numbers. 70% of respondents of this survey, of which were 4,800 people across the country, felt that with hard work, their targets were achievable. That's pretty interesting. So the other 30% are probably looking for work because they're complaining about their targets. Reasons someone might leave a company. More money, that's the big one. That supports some of the early answers here. Second one, greater flexibility. That supports the other answer here. Owning your own destiny, having control. So this so far seems pretty consistent. This was an interesting one. Most common company benefits. Medical and dental were the two big ones, but I thought the next slide was cooler because it's called the coolest company benefits. So medical, dental are most common, vacation and hours are cooler. So to me, that's basically saying I'd rather have flexible vacay and better hours, but be sick and have bad teeth. Is that kind of like where we're going with that? But some interesting stats on this. So just a high level on specifically in Canada, okay? That's overall. We're gonna get into a little bit specific by industry and role. Here's my question. How many here are in a direct sales AE kind of role? Put your hands up. Okay, hands down. How many are in a business development SDR kind of role? Hands up. Okay. How many are in a customer success add-on expansion type of role? Hands up. Higher so we can see you. Don't be shy. All right, group you as well. And how many would be in sort of like the all-inclusive other executive enablers, other roles? So we got a bit of a catch-all. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do, and this is gonna require some different type of interactivity. I'm gonna ask everyone in about a second here to stand up, and we're gonna go stand by those 4 categories. So here you go. These are the categories. And Cory's all about frameworks, so he was smart. Me and Cory are at the front.
I didn't think that we could explain this.
Yeah, that's like, so I'm gonna ask everyone who's in AE, front right, everyone BDR, front left, my left, everyone else, back right. If you're in CS, back left. I'm gonna ask everyone to stand up and go to that part of the room. 4 quadrants, up, stand up. What's that? Okay, so we're now by role. Now we're gonna do the same thing, same idea. We're gonna get into small groups of 4, right? There's plenty of groups here. So, shit, last time I did this, it took like half an hour to get everyone back together because it was turned into a whole social festival.
Is everybody okay getting back together fast? Okay, good. We ask our permission from our prospects, and they're good.
Man, that was good.
Rock and roll.
All right, here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna get into groups of 4. And the question is, and you guys are going to get creative, and actually, no, you're okay for this. The question is, everyone earns something right now. You've all got an OTE, right? If you're in sales, you for sure do. If you're in other roles, you've got some type of compensation package. It might be more or less traditional than half base, half variable, but you've got an OTE. Get into groups of 4. Number 1, introduce yourselves, because we are here to network after all. So get into your groups of 4 and introduce yourselves. And then number 2, in your groups, I want everyone to share in the next 12 months, what % increase would you like to see on your T4? What percent increase? You don't have to say what you make. You don't have to say any of your tax things or what you hide in the islands or anything like that. No accounting, no nothing. Just a percentage of how much more money you would like to make in 12 months from now. In 12 months, okay? Groups of 4 are going to give you 4 minutes. Get into your groups of 4. All right, guys, let's wrap it up. Stay where you are. Stay where you are, but let's get the conversation a little quieter. Let's stay where you are.
Everybody ready? We ready?
We're going to start going here.
Let's go.
Finish that last percentage point. Sharing
Everybody
your last
ready
story.
to get back together?
You can change your numbers one last time. All right, here we go. Let's do this again. If you can hear me, clap twice. Wow, no one can hear me. If you can hear me, clap twice. Last time, if you can hear me, clap twice. All right, so much better. All right, stay close in your little clusters here. We're gonna do a little bit of a science or a social experiment of sorts. Cory, where are you?
I'm right here. I'm behind the pole.
Oh, there you are, there you are. Okay, so we're gonna start. You want me to go first, or you want to?
You go first.
Okay, so we're gonna start with this group over here. The question is, what percent increase do you want to see on your T4 in 12 months from now? So let's start over here. Who's going first? What role are you?
BDR.
What's your percent?
100%.
100% growth. Woo!
Yeah, I'm a BDR, I guess 150% growth.
Everybody back here hearing?
Say your real numbers. This isn't an auction.
Can you guys hear him back here?
How small are you?
Okay,
All right,
just making sure you can hear him back here.
Lulua and 35%.
Okay, we've got 100, 150, and 35% here, Cory. What do you got?
Okay, let's see. What do you got?
100%.
100%?
What role? What role?
What role?
Founder.
Founder, 100%. Role and number.
Director of SDR, 50%.
Managing director, 75%.
Business development manager, like 20 to 30%.
All righty.
Should I get this group over here?
Let's see what they've got.
All right, what group we got here? Who's going first? Right here. What's your role?
AE and 35%.
AE, 35%.
20%.
20%. One more. Who wants to tell everyone?
I'm an enterprise rep. I'm looking to make an extra 50%.
Woo! All right, we got a range here. Cory, last group in the back.
Those are some numbers. All right, roll and percent.
10%.
What's your role?
Consulting.
10%.
10%, 2 in a row. And where's my friend? Where's my friend over here?
All of the percent.
He said, what'd you tell me?
We said sideways 8, infinity percent.
Everybody else is going 10 to 150%. This guy's turning an 8 sideways.
Nice. All right, guys, I want everyone to go take a seat. Give yourselves a round of applause for sharing the deep, dark secrets. Grab back your seats. Okay, so we got a lot of numbers out there, a big range. I got news for you all. You're all fucked. Here's the actual number. People wanted between 11 to 36% increase in their base salary. So people on the far right, where you're all looking, they were currently at 74,000. They want to get up to 86,000. But that's, again, this is a study across the whole country. This doesn't factor for any of the things you're thinking about. But I love how aggressive this group is, and that's the reason you come out to meetups like this. So let's get into some specific. Tech, there were a lot of people with tech hands up in the air. So I'm going to show you tech specific in Canada compared to other industries. It's the box. People that manage sales managers. The base salary, I know it's a little faint. So again, we can get these slides after. Base salary between 90 and 215. In the middle here is the actual earnings, and on the far right is the OTE. So it's basically right on par if you're managing sales leaders. So think VP level. The only other industry you'll see it a little, well, you see the range here, but it's not great in tech to manage managers compared to other industries. Interesting. Let's keep going. Just managing salespeople. So just a manager of salespeople. You see in tech, it trends highest. What's interesting about this one, OTE of 142, sales managers in Canada are actually making more. They're actually crushing their OTE, which is an interesting stat. Keep going. Client acquisition, so this is AEs. This is people going after new business, maybe managing some accounts as well. In tech, you're seeing base salaries between 50 to 120. Big range, but same idea. OT and actual is around 130. Around 130. More of account management, CS side, base salary around between 55, average is 72. Same idea, 116 to 119 all in. So this is the technical expertise in the sales process. I don't know if this means sales engineer or solution consultant. They didn't get into the specifics of it. But again, you can see the range here, base salary anywhere between 65 to 85, OTE 120 to 125 to actual. Generating new client leads, so for all the BDRs in the house, it's really small. It's very small. You guys don't own it enough. You've got base salaries in and around 44, and you're seeing actual earnings at 58, which is lower than a 63 OTE. And we're gonna come back to this because this is interesting. For anyone who's recruiting people, this is the entry-level role. So there's some real interesting insights when we compare this one particularly to the US. SaaS, we talk tech. Fair to assume most of you in tech are selling SaaS. I'm gonna show you now, that was Canada. This is US. Source of this is the Bridge Group. Anyone heard of the Bridge Group? It's an amazing consulting, sales consulting, sales process, sales motion. They're based out of Boston and the Valley, so these are their numbers. They do only SaaS consulting, so you see this against different numbers. I'm gonna go through first the AE roles, so direct contributors, based on the US, Bridge Group. OTE, base salary 62, OTE 126. This is US. This is US. Okay, so, I'm glad you brought it up, wherever you are. Great question. What you'll see though is, we're not gonna factor for currency, because then we can get into cost of living and all these other things, but what's interesting is the OTE number of 126 in the US is pretty much in line with Canada, which I thought was pretty surprising when I put this deck together. But what's interesting is the trend over time is SaaS AEs are higher in demand, and you're seeing the increase in numbers over time. OTE people earning over 100K. A lot of people early in their career, we hear it all the time, they want to hit that 6-figure mark. People are doing it faster. They're doing it faster. The median OTE is now over 100K in SaaS in the US. On target earnings, OTE, what's interesting here, this is as a factor of ACV, so it's kind of obvious. If you want to make more money, sell higher ACV products. So along the bottom, less than 5K, just under 100K. If you're selling ACV of over $100,000 deals, your OTE will be higher, more complex sale, kind of obvious in that way. Quotas, specific quota numbers. The average, I'm not going to walk you through all this, but the average annual quota was 770,000. And this is kind of across all. But you can get an average, so when you're thinking, for those of you more in leadership roles or thinking about your quota, here's how you benchmark against the US. Individual quotas as a factor of ACV, so pretty obvious. Selling higher ACV, you have a higher quota. Captain Obvious there. Percentage of AEs hitting quota. This supports numbers you're probably hearing in studies. 67% of people are actually hitting their numbers. Commission rates. Average commission, AEs, 10% of the sale. Overall, I know there's all types of comp questions, but again, specific average for benchmarks when you think about your comp plans. CS, so I got one slide here on CS, base salary, OTE, again, very comparable to what's happening in Canada, currency being considered, obviously. We're not gonna start getting into exchange rates. So this here is on the AE and account management piece. Now, BDRs, there are a bunch of BDRs. I'll give you a couple quick stats on the BDRs of what's going on. Did I just see a hand moving, shaking? Questions? Good. Here we go. SDRs, same source, Bridge Group. Average experience required at hire. Trending downwards over the last bunch of years. 1.5 years of experience. Ramp time. It's kind of been the same. It's been in and around 3 months, 3.2 months to ramp a BDR. Again, there's so many different ways to define ramp, but this is however they defined it. You can go deeper, but you have that as a high level. Average tenure in months. This one is an interesting one. Average rep tenure for a BDR is 1.5 years, right? Despite some thinking it should be 3 months, 6 months, everyone thinks this is like a bit of a jail sentence, do it quick, move on. But I would argue with many that this is the most important job in sales, opening the door. It's the hardest part. It's so funny that the least experienced people do the hardest part of the sales process. But that's a whole other conversation. Average, so this is the same idea, so it's dropped. That's what's crazy. So we're setting these precedents where used to be 2.5 years in role, and now the expectation has dropped to 1.5 years. Average time as an SDR prior to being promoted to an AE, so again, 16 months in another study. So you're seeing this trend around 1.5 years. This one is also really interesting. Months as an SDR prior to getting promoted. So for those of you planning your career, the promotion path is faster if you're selling a lower ACV amount of product. So as a factor of ASP, average selling price, if you're selling a deal over 100K, if you're in a business where the average deal is 100K, you can expect your tenure as a BDR to be longer. And there's a variety of reasons for that. So when you're thinking about managing your career, for those of you earlier, if you want to move quickly, you might want to start at a smaller company. But if you want to do the time and learn more, again, different things to factor in as you manage your early part of the career. OTE, this to me was the most interesting thing. Base salary 48, OTE was 75,000 compared to 60 something here in Canada. So anyone who's a BDR, don't tell your managers I said this, but you need a better bonus plan. I think in the US, they've really recognized how tough this role is and how important it is. So the comp structures are really changing to incentivize people to make it worthwhile to stay a little bit longer. Stay a little bit longer. And I'll show you a couple other data. This is one of my favorite ones, and the last one I'll share with today. OTE of BDRs, this is as a factor of how much experience they had. And the two lines here are comparing the type of company you work at. Are you going to work at at a high growth, the classic venture-backed high growth company, or are you just working at a company that's kind of flat, not moving? And what you see is someone who does 3 years as a BDR can be making close to 100 grand as an effective BDR at when you're selling high products. And there's whole discussions on, everyone thinks, do BDR become AE? If some people love being on the phone and are really great at it, you can make a good living doing it, depending what your goals are. But the real question is, what do you got to do to be this top line? I'm colorblind, I don't know what color it is. But the top one,
It's
how do you make more money?
Light gray.
Light gray? Yeah. I'm not that blind. I'm not that blind.
Flip my next slide. Okay, so let's get back with the partner, the first person that was sitting next to you. And what we want to do is ask this question. What specifically have you done in the last 90 days to make yourself better? Not what has your boss made you do, but what have you purposefully set out to do in the last 90 days to make yourself better? 1 minute, share it. We'll hear from a couple folks. Let's hear from...
Sure. I was recording my practice sessions and then recording our calls and listening them back afterwards within the last 90 days.
Good. Excellent. What do we have?
I've just started in a sales role 90 days ago, so I've been really focusing on health, making sure that my energy levels are good when I'm going into the office.
High energy. Love it.
Who else? Who wants to share what they did in the last 90 days? Who we got? Right here.
Hey, I'm trying to, oh no, I just did it. I'm trying to get rid of my filler words. So the you knows, and it's kind of like this. I'm trying to get rid of all of that. So I'm having meetings with my manager to figure out, or to let me know every time I use these words so I can practice that before I get on the call or the disco.
I have a present for you.
Yay!
Does anybody see my wearable device? So we've got a wearable device here. Why don't you take one of those here? They open right here. And so what we have is we have a wearable device. It's very high tech. It's IoT. And what does that say on it?
It says, you know. Oh, and like.
Yeah, so every time you say like or you know, you snap yourself and it hurts and then you stop doing it. And then I get in trouble with HR once they find out. But whatever. Here, take them, pass them around. All right. Go.
All right, so what I've done in the last 90 days was try to see the company and organization at a high level. So I've been meeting one-on-one with people from different parts. And then depending on where I want to go next, kind of challenging myself to see what I need to do what skills I need to work on to kind of get there.
Love that. Becca's got one.
I have one. I started at LevelJump as building out the CS department, and in the last 90 days, I was able to help hire somebody who is smarter and has the most amazing experience that I've been able to learn from, and that's this guy, Steve, right here.
Woo! Let's hear it for Steve.
Yes. We got another one in the back, in the bleachers.
Come to events like this one.
And once you come to them,
Meet new people, see what other people are doing better that we're not doing, really get inspired, get ideas, and come back with the team and discuss what we've learned.
Thank you.
Cool.
Hello, everyone. I'm month 4 into my new role, and I'm really trying to master the product and really know the customer well in and out and know everything about them so I can sell better.
What's the most interesting thing you've learned about the customer?
The most interesting thing I've learned about the customer is that they know a lot more than me. I sell to engineers.
Yeah, that's a tough crowd.
So I read Let's Get Real or Let's Not Play, but then in addition to that, I have been listening to my calls and recognized that I need better questions to ask when there's sort of dead space on my calls. So wrote out specific questions to keep conversation going, and that's been working pretty well so far.
Love that. Last one.
All right, last one. This is just for you. I'm a founder of a company called Sonero. It analyzes all your recordings and gives you feedback on all your conversation metrics, everything from your filler words, to your delivery and your facial expressions, and all the other different metrics. So give it a try.
So what have you done in the last 90 days?
Well, I developed the product. I'm the founder, so I did the whole thing, and I'm here with you guys.
Love that. Okay, where did I put my clicker at? All right, now I have a question. How do you make every 90 days as impactful as your first 90 days? And this is hard because we get comfortable. We're in the job, we learn some things, we do some things, we feel like we're getting really good at it, and until we're challenged, we might think that we're in a really good spot. So I've got another question, which is what's more complex, B2B sales or chess? Who says that B2B sales is more complex than chess? Raise a hand. What's chess? B2B is chess. Okay. Well, that's interesting. So if anybody's trying to buy from this guy over here, he's trying to destroy you with every move. Okay, who thinks that chess is more complex than B2B sales? Wow, interesting. Okay, that's a nice little even split there. So here's what we're gonna look at. Chess is a really simple game. There's 64 squares. B2B sales has more than 64 things, right? Well, chess only has 64 squares. The challenge is that there's 6 pieces. So we got 6 pieces over here, and this is what they look like in the starting position. It's still pretty simple, right? So what I'm planning on doing in the next 5 minutes or so, in the spirit of my new book, Hiring, Onboarding, and Ramping Salespeople, is I'm gonna onboard you all into the game of chess. Who plays chess already? Who knows their rating, either chess.com or ELO rating? Who's over 1,000? Who's over 1,500? Wow, I'm scared of that guy right there. Okay, so it's a standardized score that you can have to relate how good you are relative to other people. So I want to look at, there's 6 different pieces. Let's start with the pawn. So the pawn sits right here. The pawn can do 2 things. The pawn can move up 1 square, or initially, if it's coming out of this row, it can move up 2 squares. And so in this case, I move the pawn up 2 squares. And it can only capture diagonally. So this black pawn can capture the white pawn. If they're right in front of each other, they can't capture. Fair? We got the pawns? Okay. Anybody heard this song by Bob Seger? I'm not gonna sing it. I might sing it at the bar later. The knight can move, he can move up 1 and over 2, or up 2 and over 1. It's the only piece that can jump over other pieces. So the knight can move like that. The bishop moves diagonally. So these circles are optional moves for the bishop. Whenever I highlight this one over here on this side, these are the optional squares that the bishop can move to. So in this case, we move the bishop to this square. Are we with me so far? We're getting onboarded. Okay. The rooks, they can move sideways or they can move forward. So they can move in one direction, either sideways or forwards. Except when they castle. So if there's no pieces between the rook and the king, and neither the rook nor the king has moved before, the king can move 2 squares and jump over the rook. Very simple, right? We're all getting onboarded in this. We good? Okay, and we forgot another edge case with the pawn. There's this thing called en passant. Who's heard of en passant? Wow, that's a lot of people. Okay, that's cool. So if the pawn moves out of its original position and moves into the same rank as the horizontal row as another pawn, then that pawn can move past it diagonally and kill it without actually being diagonal to it. Yeah, exactly. So she says, repeat that. Keep in mind, we're onboarding you into the game of chess. Yeah, we'll play chess later. Okay, and then the queen can move in every direction. Move forward, sideways, and move diagonally. And then the king can move in any direction too. The queen can move unlimited squares. So the queen moves unlimited squares. The king can only move 1 square. But the king cannot move into check. Because we remember, you're out. Yeah, but half the people in the room think that B2B sales is more complex than chess. So this is a simple game for those folks, right? Okay, so now we're seeing that the pawn can capture the king if the king moves into this square. So now we've learned simply just what the pieces are and how they move. Is anybody lost? Raise your hand if you're just a little confused. It's like, what is going on up here? Okay, so the point being that a lot of times when folks start a job, have you ever heard this phrase, drinking from the fire hose? We've heard this phrase, drinking from the fire hose, and what they say is when you start a new job, you're drinking from the fire hose. Have you ever tried to drink from a fire hose? Well, you don't get a drink, and you end up injured. And so anytime when I just fire hosed you with chess, and all we got through was what the pieces are and how they move. And so imagine somebody coming into a new role, and the people that are onboarding them just start throwing all this information at them. And think about the company that you either work at now or that you worked at before. How hard would it be for you to overwhelm somebody that's new to the business? Pretty easy, right? We just wake up and do it and be like, hey, look, here's a bunch of stuff. Here's a bunch of knowledge. Here's maybe some skills that I can demonstrate or talk to you about how some other folks have done. Go shadow Timmy. Go listen to Joan's calls. Go do this stuff, right? I'm onboarding you. I'm overwhelming you with knowledge. But let's look at real life scenarios. So once we look at that basic foundation of the pieces and how they move, what's the best piece? What's the best move in this situation? There's one best move from this position. Does anybody know what it is? What piece would it be? White's the move. Question in the back. See, it's like queen h5, so that means that the queen would move to this position. Does anybody else think that queen h5 is the best move? Anybody disagree? Have another move? It's White's turn. Yeah, I said it was White's turn, didn't I? Yeah, it's White's turn. Queen h5 is the right move. So queen h5 puts the king in a check. But then what happens is they move the pawn. They move the pawn, they're attacking the queen. Remember, the pawns can capture diagonally. You're all following in this because you're getting onboarded. You're 7 minutes into your onboarding, right? Okay. So the pawn can capture the queen, so now what's the best move? Somebody says knight moves here. No, why no? Because you'll lose the knight. So he says you'll lose the knight, and guy in the back who obviously plays chess says, he says it's a gambit, you're gonna lose. Does anybody know what a gambit is? Nobody knows what a gambit is. There's just 7 people in this room that know what the word gambit means. And so you're stressed out, and this is exactly how new people feel when they come to work. You're like, oh, it's a gambit. You're like, what's a gambit? Like, oh, you should know what a gambit is. And then here's what's gonna happen. I'm not gonna do this because it's gonna drive half of you nuts. If I sit up here and explain what every single word, phrase, or sentence means that somebody brings up, then you're just gonna go out of your mind and be like, well, okay, well, I don't know any of this stuff. And then, has anybody heard of the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve? In 31 days, we only remember 21% of what we were taught. But the fun number is, it's something like you only remember 30% after 24 hours. And so we just forget all this stuff. So we overwhelm people with things like this. And then some people are right, the knight does take the pawn. And then the pawn takes the knight. So now we lost the knight. But then the queen goes up and takes the rook. And so white just gained 6 pieces and lost 6 points, because remember on that first slide, you don't remember on the first slide that rooks are worth 5 and that knights are worth 3? How you're feeling right now is exactly how people feel in onboarding rooms when they have sessions like this inside the new sales organizations. We're gonna do one more, and this one's just fun, so we're gonna roll through it real fast. So right now what happens is we've got this situation where the bishop is pinning the knight against the queen. The queen's worth 9 points, most expensive piece on the board, most valuable piece on the board. And so if we move this knight, we're gonna lose the queen. Does anybody think we should move the knight? What about Chessmaster in the back? Should we move the knight? Yes or no? Fast. Okay, everybody says we should not move the knight. Well, here's what happens. We move the knight. We move the knight to capture this pawn. Now, the pawn's under attack. The queen's under attack. But then, takes the queen. So we just lost the queen for a pawn. We just lost the queen for a pawn. Next move is checkmate. See? Chessmaster couldn't even get that one. And so now we're onboarding all these people that are confused. Melissa and Liz are very confused over there. Exactly, explain the knight again. So this is what sales onboarding programs feel like to people on the other end. When we throw knowledge, when we throw tactics, when we throw skills and all of this stuff. And I gave you the most basic introduction to chess that we could possibly have. Is that how we felt before in sales onboarding rooms? Yes, absolutely. Okay, so this is a list of chess tactics. We're not gonna go over any of these. Yeah, so there's a bunch of different things that you can do. The trick is to become good at sales, there's also a bunch of different things that we can do. And has anybody changed their mind on if chess or B2B sales is more complex since we started? We're entrenched? What do you think, Liz? Yeah. Yeah, the point is that there's seemingly unlimited moves. So I think that 3 moves into a chess game, there's like 170,000 combinations of how it could play out. And it's impossible for salespeople, people on your team, or you as a new person coming to an organization to be able to understand all of those different permutations and combinations of what you can do as a seller. How many chess openings do you think Wikipedia has? Just openings, beginnings of games. Throw a number out there. What do we think? There's 500 different ways just to start a chess game. And then when we think about how we open a sales meeting, has anybody seen our book, Triangle Selling? A couple of people? Okay, so in our book, Triangle Selling, we have a framework at the beginning of a meeting called Plan. You pivot, you talk about logistics, you discuss agendas, you outline what the next steps could be coming out of the meeting. There's 28 different scenarios that come into play just in that first 2 to 3 minutes as a salesperson outlines the plan. And so thinking about just that ridiculous example of trying to go very shallow in chess and how confused and uncomfortable it made some people, and then looking at all of these different things that happen, no permission to ask questions, talking about next steps is skipped, prospect hijacks the meeting, there's mid-meeting agenda additions, somebody wants to reset next steps mid-meeting. To get the salespeople to understand that each one of these things can happen and how to deal with it in general, but also in the context of your organization, is an incredible uphill battle. Can we do that in a 1-day or 2-week onboarding boot camp? No, not at all. And so the concept of making every 90 days as impactful as your first 90 days comes along with taking some of these things and acknowledging, I'm not gonna get to those. I'm not gonna understand what those 2 big Z words were that nobody could pronounce, let alone execute on the chessboard. But to understand that there are all of these different things, and you can triage them over time and make a priority to learn them, to learn how to execute them with skill, and then execute them with skill under pressure. And so what we want to do is talk about how we can take all of those tactics and all of those skills figure out how to triage them over the course of your career as you move into higher level management positions.
Woo!
See, now everybody likes Dave more because he's not going to torture him with chess tactics.
All right, I'm going to do a quick. Has anyone played Connect 4? All right, Cory.
I'm one of the best Connect 4 players in the United States.
All right, because I mean, I'm going to play. I believe it. I believe it. All right, so, I mean, when I first looked at the slides, I don't play chess, so I kind of looked at this and had no idea, but then the point is loud and clear. We talk to people that run onboarding all the time, and the truth is, in a lot of instances, they probably would rather be learning chess for the first time and having optionality around 500 different openings and figuring out the best way to open a call conversation with a potential prospect. All right, so I'm just going to leave a couple final stats here because there are a lot of people here that are starting a career of sales, maybe 10 years in, and I thought this would be interesting to kind of wrap it up, and then we'll open for one final exercise and some questions. The CRO. How many CROs in the room? Chief Revenue Officer. So I see one in the back. Okay, cool. CRO, the head honcho. This is above VP of Sales in many organizations. Again, source from the Bridge Group. I'm going to dangle the carrot for those of you early in your career. We've shown that people make a lot of money in sales if you're good at it and the flexibility and the power. Let's see some real numbers. This is, again, technology CROs in SaaS in the US. OTE, 340, 400, 445. OTE, usually around 55-45% split. The difference between emerging commercial and enterprise, without getting into too many details, is connected to the quota that they're responsible for, which ultimately is tied to the stage of the company. A little more clarity on that. So an emerging CRO, their quota is under 10 million. So think of a SaaS company that's doing 10 million, say, in revenue. They've raised a ton of money, so they have to double. They have to double within 12 months. So for a CRO to take that business from 10 to 20 million, they're going to make somewhere between 310 and 370. If you're more of an enterprise, think a pre-IPO company, $100 million, you want to grow to 150, 180, whatever it is, 300 million, trying to get to 100 million. You're looking at a way more sophisticated, I mean, you're getting more and complicated. OTE profile by high growth companies versus non. So we looked at this a little bit earlier, and I mean, you wonder why jobs are so much more sought after at companies that are growing so quickly and why people get excited. You'll make more money there. The data is showing it right here at every single level. Every single level. Equity. Everyone wants to know how much equity you get. This is interesting as well, according to different companies. At the bottom, I know it's a little faint, so it's based on the revenue where they are. So companies that are less than 50 million, a CRO will get 1.9%. On the far end, if the company's over 500 million, they'll get 0.5%. So again, just ideas of thinking about the types of equity you may want to be shooting after when starting early stage companies. The earlier the company is, the greater chance of getting a little bit more equity. So interesting thoughts around that. And then this is kind of the summary. And again, you don't have to take pictures. I will have these slides made available. But what you see, again, as you manage your career, whatever stage, 1 year in, 10 years in, 20 years in, the different levels of earnings you can make at senior levels will really change based on the stage of the company and their growth rate. So I'm not going to go through all of these. You see the range and experience. So if you want to be on a fast path, second line here, user experience, 6 years to be a CRO at an emerging company versus 10. So for people that are in a rush. And then some other ones, median OTEs at the bottom. You'll see the range here at emerging company, 340 to 400. And on the other side on enterprise, 450 to 500. So just some real interesting stats on things that people can make on a whole overall. So a little bit of a dangle of a carrot to really emphasize, stay in sales. You're here. Keep staying in sales. There's a lot more money to be made here.
Okay, so we're going to be quick. Here, flip next slide. So here's what I want to do. Interview a partner and literally in 15 seconds, tell them, what are you going to do in the next 90 days? Recognizing that there are hundreds and thousands of things for you to figure out how to improve on. 15 seconds, what are you going to do? and then we're going to get back together. All right, hey, let's clap twice if you can hear me. Let's clap 2 more times if you can hear me. Did everybody get a chance to share something with a partner? Let's clap 3 more times if you can hear me. Okay, thanks everyone. Making commitments around what you're going to do from an activity perspective. Salespeople can only control 2 things. They can control the quality and quantity of their activities. Everything else is an outcome based on that. Okay. Kenny.
Round of applause, everyone. This is fantastic. I want to spend the next few minutes doing some Q&A. It's not often we get amazing speakers up here, and I want to make sure people in the audience get an opportunity to ask a couple questions. I want to be conscious of time. So we're going to open the slot for 2 or 3 questions, depending on length. If people have questions, so if you have a question, now would be the time to ask it. There we go. You wait long enough, eventually it'll be awkward.
Yes, this is for Cory. I'm just curious, when you were kind of starting off in your career, what were like maybe 1 or 2 or 3 things you were doing daily to improve on your sales acumen and just overall sales skills?
I would get things that my boss had to do that were way above my pay grade that he didn't have time to do, and I would do them. And there were nights where I'd work till midnight or 2 in the morning because I knew I could learn these skills. I could learn them 3 years from now, I could learn them today. And to the extent that you can get real life, real projects from people inside of your organization and actually do them and get feedback and realize why you're terrible. Think back to something you did 5 years ago, and you're gonna be like, oh man, 5 years ago I wasn't very good. Well, guess what? Today, you are you 5 years ago, 5 years from now. And so just get the repetitions in and just do real activity that's hard and push yourself.
Top 2 or 3 sales resources that you follow on a regular basis, whether it's blogs or something else.
Dave wrote a great blog on the Drift blog the other day, didn't you? That was bomb. That was great.
So, sorry, what was the question? What blogs do we follow? What resources? I think SalesTO is amazing. SalesTO to me is the best blog for all things SaaS, tech, sales, all around. And then any check out sales methodologies, consultants. I like a lot of the trainers like John Barrows or Jocko Vanderkoij. Read Melissa's content. She knows her shit inside out. So find some thought leaders you connect with and follow them.
And read Harvard Business Review, because Harvard Business Review makes you think as the organization, not as tactical and the weed salespeople. And just so you know, I don't think I mentioned this because I don't really talk about myself much, but the reason we're writing these books is I'm open sourcing all sales content. So whenever you hear about organizations that charge for content, at some point, I'll write a book on the topic that they're charging for, and everything's going to be free, and then it's your job to figure out how it all fits together inside your company. Well, it's $15 on Amazon, but I don't get that $15, so it's free, basically.
If you have to give one advice to someone who has a service or a product that is unique to a market, that's disrupting the market, which includes a lot of education on the client so that they understand what type of a product or service you have, what advice that would be to essentially to increase the speed on that?
Give me an example of how they're doing whatever you're going to do for them today.
Yeah, exactly. Like, let's say I have like a very unique product that currently does not exist in the market.
Yeah, but how do they do the job today?
Very traditional and conventional method that there is a much better automated way.
Yeah,
to
so
do
you
it.
didn't. So the job that they're doing exists today, but how they do the job doesn't exist.
Exactly.
So what's the pain associated with how they do the job today, and is that compelling enough for them to invest resources, be it political resources, financial resources, any other type of resources to solve that pain?
So what's the easiest way to educate the client and really highlight that fact?
Chapter 5, Sales Playbooks, the Builder's Toolkit. In that room, build your discovery questions based on the pain that your features solve.
Done. Thank you.
Get it.
Companies pay thousands of dollars to get that answer.
Tens
Thanks
of thousands.
again so much for Cory and David. Round of applause for them tonight. Amazing, amazing job. Get the clicker. Well, before we head off, I want to ask Cory a quick question. Cory, we started this night with you being somewhat enthusiastic about the Toronto crowd. After the performance tonight, what do you think about Toronto?
Toronto rocks. I love Toronto. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you guys for coming out tonight. Thanks for everyone for coming out tonight. The good news about SalesTO is that half an hour we'll close up shop, but in 2 months we'll be back.